In mid-August, we were leaving Bayfield for the Great Lakes Cruising Club's rally at Silver Bay on the rugged north shore of Minnesota. Unfortunately, the winds were way too light for us to sail, so we instead relied on our engine power. Freelance is a moderate to heavy cruising boat. It does best when the winds are above 10 knots. Cutting inside the buoy at Red Cliff Point, we headed west through the Lighthouse Channel. Our next waypoint was set at the northeast end of York Island. The winds came up some, but the direction was not favorable. When we left the Apostle Islands behind, we had already set the main and were motor sailing. On this particular crossing, Vicky and I again had our friends Chuck and Jane along as crew. If you look very closely, you can see a sailboat ahead of us motor sailing. That's Osprey out of Port Superior. The mainsail really wasn't giving us any drive. We just used it as a riding sail. It steadied us and the motion was very comfortable. At 12:15, we were nearly out of the commercial shipping lanes. There was now less than 2 hours to go to Silver Bay's marina. We were very pleased with our progress and greatly looked forward to seeing our friends at the Cruising Club's rally. All along Hal, our autopilot, had done most of the steering. You just have to have a reliable autopilot if you do any long-distance cruising. It not only saves you from hand steering, but allows you to get out of the wind and under the Dodger. Besides the Dodger, Freelance has lee cloths to provide some shelter. It's often quite chilly out there in the middle of Lake Superior, even in August. Of course, the mid-lake temperatures are not the only thing that makes sailing Lake Superior a challenge. It has a fearful reputation, but I can assure you it is a reasonable place to sail in the summertime, provided you treat it with the proper respect, have a well-found boat, and carefully watch the weather. Chuck rigged our dock lines and fenders before we arrived at the Great Lakes Cruising Club's rally at Silver Bay Marina. There were all kinds of social and informational activities planned. Potluck dinner, breakfast, safety demonstration involving shooting our flares, boat show, business meeting, and a sunset dinner cruise along the rocky north shore on the motor vessel Winonah. It used to ferry passengers from Grand Portage to Isle Royale. It is now operated as a tour boat out of Silver Bay. This particular and private excursion took us to the southwest down towards Rock Lighthouse. It was a beautiful evening and there was plenty of time to visit with friends. Many a technical boating detail was discussed and many a sea story told. All while the scenic shore passed by to starboard. It was a great success. There were about 40 to 50 members and guests on board. Some had come down from cruising Isle Royale, some from Grand Marais, some up from Duluth, but most had come across the lake from the Apostle Islands. The North Shore is very beautiful but can be very dangerous. Today, this is a popular dive site. In 1905, a 430-foot schooner barge, the Madeira, struck here in a bad November storm and was lost. What is amazing is that the crew, except for one man, escaped by climbing the sheer cliff. The same 1905 storm sank a total of 20 ships on Lake Superior. As a result of the disaster, there was great pressure to construct more lighthouses, and Split Rock Lighthouse was built. Situated on the 130-foot cliff, it was completed in 1910 and retired from service by the U.S. Coast Guard in 1968. Today, this famous landmark is maintained by the Minnesota Historical Society. However, while designated as abandoned on the nautical charts, it is still fully functioning and is lit every year on November the 10th to commemorate the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. But now was the time to turn around and head back to Silver Bay. That gave us a grand photo opportunity, as the cruising club members could take turns having their pictures taken at the bow of the Winonah with the split Rock Lighthouse behind them. The next morning we left after breakfast in a gentle breeze. All our sails were set and we made good progress back towards the Apostle Islands. As always, there was some traffic out there on the open lake. Besides the returning Great Lakes Cruising Club fleet and a few Wayzata Yacht Club races, there were also the freighters in the shipping lanes to keep an eye on. However, we only had to adjust our course once. It was to comfortably cross behind the Oak Glen, a 730-foot Canadian bulk carrier. Other than that, we hardly had to adjust our sails in course. The wind direction was that steady, although the wind speed gradually built to 20 knots. It was a really nice sail. Our plan was to find a well-protected anchorage once we got back into the islands, and we found that in the East Bay of Raspberry Island. After dropping our anchor, we had a pleasant meal and a restful night before we headed back into Bayfield the next day.